Breaking news has shocked the faith community. Pastor Creflo Dollar, one of the most high-profile pastors in America, is at the center of tragic and unexpected events. Emotions are running high, questions are being asked, and fans around the world are struggling to process what just happened. You won't believe the developments that have emerged behind the scenes, and what comes next could change everything for his ministry and family. This is a story filled with heartbreak, unanswered questions, and revelations that no one saw coming. What happens when a world-renowned pastor faces a sudden and tragic situation? That's exactly what is happening with Pastor Creflo Dollar, and the details are both shocking and heartbreaking. While most of the public only sees his sermons and public appearances, there's a side to this story that few know: moments of personal struggle, hidden challenges, and dramatic events that have shaken his ministry to its core. In this video, we'll break down the latest developments, reveal rare behind-the-scenes details, and explore the emotional and spiritual impact of this tragedy. You'll hear what led to this shocking moment, how those close to him are responding, and why this situation has left the faith community in disbelief. By the end of this story, you'll understand why this isn't just news. It's a deeply personal moment with far-reaching consequences. You won't believe what happened next, and this is where the story gets truly emotional and unforgettable. It all began quietly, with whispers among staff and close associates that something was seriously wrong. Pastor Creflo Dollar, a household name in the faith community and a figure known for his inspirational messages and philanthropic work, was suddenly at the center of heartbreaking news that no one expected. According to insiders, the events leading up to the tragedy were filled with subtle warning signs that many overlooked. Late-night calls, urgent meetings, and messages hinting at stress or concern painted a picture of tension behind the scenes. While the public saw only the polished persona of a confident, charismatic leader, those closest to him sensed that something was brewing, an unexpected crisis that could change everything. When news finally broke, the reaction was immediate and intense. Congregants, followers, and fans flooded social media with disbelief, prayers, and messages of support. Headlines captured the shock and urgency of the moment, with phrases like "Pastor Creflo Dollar faces tragic situation" and "Faith community in mourning" dominating feeds. Family and staff were reportedly overwhelmed, trying to manage both the personal and public impact of the tragedy. Sources close to the pastor described moments of deep emotion, tears, whispered conversations, and a heavy sense of helplessness as everyone struggled to understand the unfolding events. One insider shared, "We never imagined something like this could happen. It shook everyone to their core." But the true gravity of the situation wasn't fully understood until private details emerged. Messages and accounts from those on the scene revealed moments of fear, uncertainty, and attempts to act quickly to mitigate further harm. There were calls for medical assistance, urgent coordination among family members, and an overwhelming sense that the world they knew had been turned upside down. And here's the part that left everyone stunned. Even as the tragedy was happening, rumors and speculation began circulating online. Social media users debated what had occurred, often filling in gaps with theories, sometimes accurate, sometimes wildly speculative. The viral attention only amplified the tension, leaving friends, family, and followers grappling with a combination of shock, grief, and curiosity. But what happened next changed everything. The story didn't just remain a private moment of sorrow, it began to ripple across the faith community, drawing attention from other leaders, media outlets, and supporters around the globe. And that's when the deeper, more revealing details started to surface, exposing layers of emotion and complexity that few were prepared to handle. Within hours of the tragic news about Pastor Creflo Dollar, the story spread like wildfire. Social media erupted with posts, tweets, and videos as followers expressed their disbelief, fear and prayers. Hashtags such as hashtag pray for Creflo Dollar, hashtag faith community shock, and hashtag pastor tragedy began trending, dominating online conversations and drawing attention from not only fans but mainstream media outlets. Congregants and longtime supporters were among the first to react. Many described feeling an emotional gut punch, shock, sadness, and even anger that such a tragedy could strike a figure who had been a beacon of hope and inspiration for so many. Statements from local and national church members flooded online platforms. "I can't believe this happened," wrote one. "He's been a guiding light for our community, and now we're left trying to understand why." Meanwhile, mainstream media quickly picked up the story, providing coverage that highlighted both the tragic nature of the situation and the enormous influence Pastor Dollar had in the faith world. Headlines read, "Faith Leader Faces Unthinkable Tragedy," and "Pastor Creflo Dollar's Ministry in Shock After Sudden Events." News anchors and reporters speculated on the impact of the tragedy, analyzing how such an event could affect both his congregation and his broader ministry work. Insiders reported that church staff and leadership were scrambling to manage the situation. Emergency meetings were held to ensure both the pastor's immediate needs and the congregation's emotional support. Counselors and spiritual advisors were brought in to guide staff and congregants through the intense wave of grief and uncertainty. According to sources, volunteers and supporters rallied together, offering practical assistance and spiritual guidance, demonstrating the depth of loyalty and care within the faith community. The story also prompted widespread discussions about vulnerability, human fragility, and the pressures faced by high-profile spiritual leaders. Fans debated why someone who appears so strong in public can still be subject to tragic circumstances in private. Comment threads were filled with heartfelt messages, including both hope and heartbreak. "Even those who guide us spiritually face struggles," one wrote. "We must lift them in prayer." As media coverage expanded, speculation began to surface about the underlying causes and contributing factors. While many sources emphasized the need for sensitivity and verified information, online forums and reality-based news sites amplified the story with rumors and theories. Every new report, every leaked detail seemed to add another layer of complexity, keeping audiences riveted and hungry for the next update. And then came the first real insider revelation, a detail that went far beyond what was publicly known. Sources close to the pastor revealed that there were private, emotionally charged moments immediately following the tragedy that had never been captured on camera or reported in the news. Family members, close friends, and staff had to make split-second decisions under intense emotional strain, and what they experienced behind closed doors added a human depth to the story that few outside the inner circle could fully comprehend. But what happened next would leave both the congregation and the wider faith community completely stunned. Hidden details about Pastor Dollar's health, ministry decisions, and personal struggles began to emerge, exposing a side of the story that was more complicated and more heartbreaking than anyone could have anticipated. The implications of these revelations were only beginning to surface, and they would change the conversation about faith, leadership, and human vulnerability forever. While the public watched headlines and social media unfold, those closest to Pastor Creflo Dollar experienced a side of the story that few outsiders could ever imagine. According to multiple insiders, the pastor had been facing pressures that were largely invisible to the congregation and the world. The responsibilities of leading a high-profile ministry, managing staff, guiding thousands of congregants, and navigating personal life challenges created a weight that had been building quietly for years. Family members and close advisors revealed that in the days leading up to the tragedy, Pastor Dollar showed subtle signs of emotional and physical strain, Late-night meetings, extended calls with ministry staff, and a series of personal messages hinted at stress and concern over matters both public and private. While outwardly composed during sermons and appearances behind closed doors, he was reportedly grappling with intense decisions that would affect both his health and the future of his ministry. Staff members shared that on the day of the incident, the tension was palpable. Urgent conversations, whispered discussions, and moments of visible worry suggested that those closest to him were aware something serious was unfolding. One insider stated, "We could sense that something wasn't right. There was this weight in the room, this unspoken fear that we were witnessing the beginning of something that could change everything." Private messages exchanged with family and confidants revealed that Pastor Dollar had been making preparations for potential crises. Whether related to his personal well-being, ministry operations, or unforeseen emergencies, he had been proactively addressing issues that most people would never see. These messages painted a picture of a man deeply committed to his faith, his congregation, and his family, even while navigating unimaginable personal challenges. What made these revelations even more striking were details about the emotional impact on those around him. Close aides described moments of heartbreak, watching someone they admired struggle with pressures that seemed insurmountable. Tears, long conversations, and quiet prayers filled the spaces behind the scenes, showing the humanity of a figure the public often saw as almost untouchable. Insiders also hinted at unexpected complications related to his ministry. There were reports of decisions that had to be made under intense pressure, including financial, organizational, and pastoral matters. Staff and family members were caught between maintaining privacy, protecting his reputation, and ensuring the well-being of the congregation. One advisor remarked, "Every choice had a ripple effect. It wasn't just about him, it was about thousands of people who depended on him." And just when it seemed the story had reached its deepest emotional point, another shocking revelation emerged. Sources disclosed that there were hidden factors that contributed to the crisis, factors that had never been publicly discussed. These included private health concerns, unanticipated family issues, and spiritual struggles that challenged even a leader as steadfast as Pastor Dollar. The details still emerging added layers of complexity, making it clear that the public narrative was only scratching the surface. But the story doesn't end here. As these revelations began to leak, questions arose. How would Pastor Dollar recover? How would his ministry respond? And how would the public, long inspired by his faith and leadership, process the reality of these private struggles? The answers were unclear, leaving the community waiting, praying, and watching closely for the next development. As the news of Pastor Creflo Dollar's tragic situation spread, the story quickly transcended social media and entered mainstream media outlets. Television networks, online news sites, and faith-based publications all scrambled to cover the developing events. Headlines blared phrases like "faith community shaken by Pastor Creflo Dollar's crisis" and "tragic developments rock prominent church leader," capturing both the shock and emotional gravity of the situation. Fans and congregants were among the first to react, flooding comment sections with prayers, messages of support, and expressions of disbelief. Some described the news as almost surreal, struggling to reconcile the public image of Pastor Dollar as a confident, larger-than-life spiritual guide with the vulnerable human reality that had just emerged. One follower wrote, "I've looked up to him for years, and now seeing this, I realize he's human, just like the rest of us. We have to pray and support him." At the same time, reality-based news outlets and blogs began dissecting every aspect of the story. They analyzed his ministry decisions, recent sermons, and public appearances, looking for clues or signs that might explain the tragic event. While much of the speculation remained unverified, the sheer volume of coverage amplified public concern and curiosity. Viewers everywhere were glued to updates, eager to understand the sequence of events the emotional impact, and the potential long-term consequences. Inside the church community, leaders and staff grappled with the practical and emotional fallout. According to insiders, emergency meetings were convened to address congregation concerns, maintain ministry operations, and provide counseling for staff and parishioners. Volunteers and spiritual mentors stepped up to offer guidance, prayers, and emotional support. The response highlighted the strength of community bonds, but also underscored the heavy responsibility on those managing the aftermath of such a high-profile crisis. The tragedy also sparked broader conversations about the pressures faced by spiritual leaders. Commentators and social media users debated the emotional and physical toll of leading a large ministry, questioning how someone so admired publicly could face private struggles with such intensity. Threads of reflection and concern appeared everywhere. "We often forget that our leaders are human too," one wrote. "They carry burdens we can't see." Adding another layer of complexity, new insider details emerged, suggesting that the crisis had ramifications beyond the immediate event. Decisions about upcoming sermons, ministry programs, and public appearances had to be postponed or reconsidered. Staff had to carefully navigate the balance between transparency and privacy, weighing the congregation's right to know against the pastor's need for healing and discretion. And just when the community thought they had grasped the full extent of the situation, another revelation shocked everyone. Private family communications and internal ministry discussions revealed that this tragedy was more than a single moment. It was the culmination of ongoing pressures, challenges, and personal struggles that had quietly unfolded behind the scenes. The depth of the situation left supporters, followers, and media outlets all wondering what could happen next and how would Pastor Dollar navigate this incredibly difficult period. Amidst the media frenzy and public speculation, the most profound moments were happening behind closed doors. Family members, close advisors, and senior ministry staff described emotionally charged scenes as they gathered to support Pastor Creflo Dollar. These weren't just logistical meetings or routine discussions. They were moments of raw human vulnerability, where tears, honest confessions, and unfiltered emotions filled the room. According to insiders, Pastor Dollar shared private reflections about the weight he had been carrying, not only as a spiritual leader, but as a human being navigating personal and ministry-related challenges. He spoke candidly about the pressures of public expectation, the responsibility toward thousands of congregants, and the internal struggles that had quietly built over time. One confidant said, "It was unlike anything I've ever seen. He was human in a way the public rarely sees, honest, raw, and deeply emotional." These private confessions revealed layers of resilience, faith, and determination. Despite the tragedy and the overwhelming emotional weight, Pastor Dollar reportedly expressed a strong desire to continue his mission and provide guidance to those who depended on him. He acknowledged the mistakes, missteps, and vulnerabilities that had contributed to the situation, and he asked for patience and prayers as he worked toward healing. Meanwhile, family and staff worked tirelessly to support him, balancing the need for privacy with the congregation's desire for updates. Emotional support, counseling sessions, and strategic planning became essential as they navigated both personal and public fallout. Sources described moments of profound connection, where Pastor Dollar's vulnerability allowed others to see the human side of a leader often perceived as invincible. At the same time, the faith community rallied around him. Congregants shared their stories of gratitude, prayers, and encouragement, emphasizing that even in moments of tragedy, leadership and faith could inspire resilience. Social media posts shifted slightly from speculation to support, with messages such as, "We are praying for Pastor Dollar and his family," and "Even leaders face trials, and our prayers are with him." Yet, despite the support, the situation was far from resolved. Insider accounts hinted at continuing challenges, health considerations, ministry obligations, and personal decisions that would require careful navigation in the weeks and months to come. There were discussions about temporary adjustments to ministry schedules, potential counseling for staff, and a strategic plan to manage both public perception and internal well-being. And then came the revelation that left everyone emotionally stunned. Private confessions suggested that this tragedy had sparked a turning point. Pastor Dollar admitted that this period of struggle forced him to confront his own limitations, reassess priorities, and recognize the importance of leaning on both faith and the support system around him. Friends and advisors described this as a deeply transformative moment, a chance not just for recovery, but for renewed clarity, purpose, and emotional strength. As the situation began to stabilize, the congregation, staff, and public were left reflecting on the human lessons embedded in the story. The tragedy had exposed vulnerability, resilience, and the profound need for empathy toward leaders who carry immense responsibility. And even as questions remained, one thing was certain. The faith community, and indeed the world watching, had witnessed a moment that would forever redefine how they saw Pastor Creflo Dollar, his ministry, and the delicate balance between public life and private struggles.